Hi, I'm Lindsay, host of the Live Like Eden podcast. What do you do when your whole life flips upside down? Are you questioning everything, lost in chaos, or yearning for life's deeper meaning? I've been there, deep in the thick of it, unraveling my own awakening mess for over 20 years. Now I'm here to help you through yours. I share no-nonsense weekly wake-ups, cutting through the ego's illusions to wake you up to your own spiritual wisdom. No mountaintop bliss needed here, just practical tools, insights, and real-life experience to save you time. Plus, a much-needed laugh when we're all losing it. Let's dive into this fresh new episode. Imagine getting that email. Thanks, but no thanks. You applied for that dream job. You sent out a pitch for a proposal on a project you want to do. Or your relationship is crumbling. The ego jumps in immediately and says, see, I told you so. You'll never make it. You aren't worth it. You're a loser, right? How many of you have had an email or a message of some kind, voicemail, text, whatever it is, or how about no communication whatsoever? The ghosting. I'm not going to communicate with this person, so they'll just get the hint that we're not interested. We'll just not respond. That's my favorite. But how many of you can relate to this? You've had a moment in your life where you failed, or at least your mind told you it was a failure. And this is a critical point that I want you to hear again. The mind told you. Big capital TOLD. It told you that. And then you made a decision, whether you were aware of it or not, to believe it. So I want to focus on this today, and we're going to talk about failure's mirage, the mysticism behind failure. Is it the ego's sabotage or the gift of rejection? Last episode, I talked about the glass being half empty, half full, or maybe there's no glass at all. Maybe we don't need to put ourselves into these containers. That there's more to the story. There's more ways to see any given situation. But for those of you that get stuck with feeling like a failure or you feeling rejected in your life, let's go specific into this topic today. And I want to break this show down into two moving parts. And those will be one, the ego's glorification of failure and rejection. I want to talk about the ego glorifies, oh, I'll never make it. See, look at all these reasons. Look at all this stuff that's happened to me. And this is fact. It's just a fact. And I'm now a failure and I'm being rejected everywhere I turn, whether it's my job, my family, my marriage, my relationships, whatever it is. You just see it everywhere. Like I was discussing the last episode, you're expecting that outcome because it consistently happens. So it's normal in your mind to see that because it always happens. And then the second part of the show, I want to focus on seeing failure as a signal. It's just a signal to you to either learn, pivot, or evolve, or maybe all three. That it doesn't have to be this sad story anymore. You don't have to identify yourself as a failure or someone who's being rejected all the time. That there is a way to see differently, and we'll go over several ways that you can do that in your own mind. And there's simple things, but they can make a world of difference. I want to reiterate as I'm talking today, I am speaking to you directly from my own personal experience with feeling like life is never going to move anywhere. I lived it. I was in it for at least a solid decade and then a few years in between. The mind is so powerful when we believe what it's telling us. Again, reemphasizing the word told, like I said in the beginning, it's telling us a story. And the only thing that matters is whether we believe it or not. And that's really the key here as I move through this show today, is really thinking about this story that the mind is telling us. We are not special in this way. Like everybody has this. You know, everybody's got a mind. Everybody's got thoughts. It's not like some people have a negative side and some people have just a positive side. We all have this confliction inside. And when you can get really real with it, right? Like just get real with yourself. This is what's happening. When you do that, everything could start changing and you can shift out of it. But before we start learning how to shift out of it, I want to go over the ego's glorification of itself and of the failure and rejection that you may feel. So the ego's going to take this no that you hear in that email or that text or that voicemail or that absence of saying anything, and it's going to glorify it. It's going to make it a personal catastrophe. It's like you become the center of your own movie. You're spinning pessimism into victimhood, really. And if it happens routinely, you get really good at, well, I can't do it, so I'm the victim. Poor me. In a way, you attract attention this way. Even somebody who's very, very ill in their life. There's people who deal with really serious illnesses. And now some people just deal with them and they live their life and they don't complain too much and they just deal with them. But then there's other people who will use their illness, right, the constant state of chronic illness or fatigue or whatever they're dealing with, and they'll grab a hold of it, and the ego will do what? Pull itself into this prison of victimhood and the saga of poor me. It'll glorify the situation. That might be for reasons like getting the attention of everybody around me, keeping the focus on me instead of other people around me. You know, there's a lot of really deep psychological reasons that the ego will use. But see it in your own life. Like, where have I taken something where I felt like a no was happening? You know, I was just being blocked off. I was failing, whether it was physically, mentally, you know, something going on in your life, relationships. It doesn't matter. It's just such a theme. Think about it and see what you did. Did you glorify it in any way? Did you continue to convince yourself that you were a failure? And here's all the proof, right? You could just lay it out. You can show everybody all the proof, and then you can just keep spinning the story. So if you find yourself stuck in this cycle in your mind where you're sort of glorifying your failure, even if it's a negative feeling, right? It doesn't have to feel good. It's a feeling of, see, I'm never going to get out of it. Look at all these things that are happening, and I'm just terrible. I'll never, ever be able to do it. The ego's getting a payoff here. It's getting something that it wants. It loves to loathe in itself, right? And it's also keeping its attention on itself so that you don't see the doorway, that big open doorway within that can get you out of it, can go to the spiritual side. It just keeps a block on it. And maybe you get some sympathy from other people. You know, maybe you have control this way. You know, there's a lot of different reasons this can happen. When you use your failure or feeling rejected and become kind of a victim, when you do it long enough, what happens? You develop a comfort zone, right? It's like a little energetic security blanket. And now I'm just going to stay right here because it's comfortable. Even though I'm kind of miserable, I'm comfortable. I'm not having to push out or try anything new or maybe change course, select a new path. You know, none of that's happening because I would rather complain and be a victim, but I'm comfortable doing that. I don't have to spread my wings and think of it differently. I can just keep myself in this repetitive cycle. And this could be happening subconsciously or on the unconscious level. You might have zero idea of why, but if you begin to question it, then you can kind of dive a little bit deeper and maybe ask yourself all these questions like, why am I continuing to do this? There's got to be something that I'm enjoying about being a victim. I'm comfortable, right? You know, for me, it was like, I don't want to learn how to deal with energy coming into my system and feeling this mysticism as I'm moving through a store. I don't want to have to do that. So I chose not to until I realized it was getting too comfortable. You know, it's not going away. Like, you're still going to feel these frequencies and how it's coming into your field, no matter where you are, whether you're at home or in the store. So you either figure it out or just stay comfortable, stay the victim. Another thing to think about is whether you know it or not, when you're playing this failure card, you're just playing it over and over in your mind, and you may not be actually physically saying this out loud, but your mind is probably telling you this. It's almost like it's an attention-seeking drama. Like, the more that you become the star of your own saga, you know, your own tragedy, if you will, it really is distracting you from any kind of inner work. It's distracting you from realizing that you actually do have potential. It's not showing you any of that because you're too wrapped up in being this star. And that's what the ego loves, right? It's always its special little self, its special identity. And whether it's playing out a very positive role or a negative one, that's irrelevant. This can happen on the opposite end of the spectrum too, not just with failure and rejection. being the do-gooder, like getting into that whole thing. It's still the ego kind of glorifying itself. But since today we're focusing on this concept of failure, it's really building up the fear within you. There's a fear there. And I mentioned this last episode a little bit, like what would I be or what would I do if I didn't have this to hold on to anymore? If I didn't have this comfort zone, what would happen? You don't know. All of a sudden the mind is like, I don't know. And then there's what? Fear of the unknown. That's probably the biggest thing that each one of us carries. We don't like not knowing what's happening. We don't like not knowing where we're headed. And we definitely don't want to think about what about beyond all this, right? That can be terrifying too. The ego will glorify that half-empty viewpoint that I talked about last episode. It glorifies the half-empty and predicts a horrible outcome. It's already guaranteeing that you're going to be disappointed. And it's isolating you from seeing outside the box. It's isolating you completely. It's reinforcing the separation that we all carry, right, from our true nature and spirit. It's building walls around you against any kind of hope or action that you could take to change the situation. And there's the hook, changing the situation, looking at it differently. It's preventing you from seeing that there's actually a choice in your mind to either believe what your mind is telling you or not. It is there. Any of you that are out there listening that are struggling with really believing that life is never going to get any better, I get it. It's like, you don't know what I'm going through, right? And it's true. How can anyone know what anyone else is going through? Expecting anybody to know what anyone's really feeling is impossible. Nobody knows what anybody else is experiencing. It's theirs to experience. And it's also yours to wake up from it, if you so choose. You don't have to. You could just do what you do. But the opportunity exists for change. And it starts by just simply letting go of what your mind is telling you. I mentioned this a minute ago, but there's a payoff that the ego is getting. How does addiction form in life? It's kind of similar. There's something the ego is getting from all of this. It wins by keeping you small. If you're getting attention from other people in this victimhood or this failure of rejection, you're getting attention over it, maybe that is facilitating a connection that you want from other people. And it doesn't matter how you get it. But is it real? Is that a real connection? Or is that just I'm playing a role here? I'm sabotaging myself just to feel some sort of connection to something, to someone. And so I'll continue the saga. I'll continue the glorification of my failure so that I can keep somebody listening to it. Maybe that's part of it. These are all options. You can ask yourself this really big question. What am I gaining from staying stuck? What is it? Get a piece of paper out, write it down, write out the words. What am I gaining from staying stuck? And then you just make a list. And don't overthink it. Just write anything that comes to your mind. There's not a wrong answer. You just write everything that's possible for why you could be staying stuck. Like, what are you getting from it? When you start to notice this and you're ready to kind of see why you're doing what you're doing and you recognize what's really happening, it starts to break the cycle. And that's what we're trying to do, right? You're trying to break the cycle of believing in this illusion of failure, that it defines who you are as an identity. It doesn't have to. It doesn't have to at all. After listing off all these possibilities of why the ego's doing what it's doing, the deeper essence underneath all of it, right, is to prevent you from having access to your spiritual mind. And this is always such a major topic of these shows, but it's true. The ego is really working to protect itself from its own demise, right? It's created a huge identification with itself, whoever you are in the world, and it's going to use every single thing that happens in your life to reinforce that identity. And it's going to make sure you still feel separated from the whole or from the God source. So it keeps its specialness. It keeps itself feeling that if you fail, that's who you are. If you are being rejected, no one will ever want to love you. And it keeps the cycle going and going and going. And one of the only ways to really break out of this cycle is to, one, recognize that there's an alternative. There's the spiritual side of the mind. It's there. Maybe you don't feel it yet. Maybe you don't notice it yet, but It's there. It's available to everybody. And then number two, you have to start rising above this battleground of the mind. And there's a decision-making process in your mind. There's the decision maker in there that says, I can see that there's a conflict in my mind. And there's the ego's playground over here. And then there's the spiritual side. I can choose which of these systems to listen to. I have a choice. When you recognize there's a choice, everything changes. Even if nothing physically has happened yet, there will be a subtle shift within you and you'll feel it. You'll feel lighter. You'll be excited. Or maybe you just get curious and like, oh my gosh, what am I doing here? I don't have to live like this anymore. I don't have to believe any of this. Maybe there's a signal I'm missing about failure, about why I feel the way that I do, about why I feel rejected all the time. So let's look at this now. Let's look at seeing failure as a signal and how we can learn, pivot, or evolve. So in this way of looking at things, we're stepping out of the ego's glorification of every little horrible thing and making it a sad story. And we're going to shift into the wisdom of spirit. Get very simple with it. We're just shifting into wisdom. You can view failure as failure and that you're awful, or you can do something else. You can see it as a sign. There's more for me to learn. It's not the final verdict on anything. It's just a signal saying, maybe I need to shift perspective. Maybe I need to do something differently. Maybe I need to practice something more. Maybe I need to get out of what I'm doing entirely. Maybe that's why I keep getting rejected. What is it I'm not seeing? So failure equals signal. Hello, signal. You know what's interesting in life too, when the ego loves to glorify its failure? I have to ask this question, and I want you to think about it as I'm saying it, but is that what you think this world is? Like, do you think this is a perfect world? Are you perfect? Does everything have to be according to what you think it should be? Does your mind have to create everything and it needs to be a perfect way? I mean, look at the world. Look at what it is. This is like where we're unlearning everything. This is not a perfect world. This world is chaos. It's messy. It's not always great. It has all of it, right? But it's where we wake up. So when you start thinking that everything has to be perfect, that I need to be good at it, if I don't do it, I'm horrible, you're listening to something that's the total mirage. It's a complete illusion. When you really look and when you're really willing to look at what this world is, it's where we learn, or like we're doing right now, unlearning the trickery of the ego mind. And in order to do that, crazy things happen, don't they? Really awful things or challenging things happen in your life to get you to step out of the ego's sabotage and into spirit's wisdom. You're becoming the student. You don't know everything. And when you get comfortable not knowing everything and you step into the unknown with more ease, it gets a little easier. So if there's something that you failed at, for example, I'm going to use this because this experience I'm going to share with you inspired today's show. One of my daughters recently went to get her license. She had to take a driving test. And when she took the test, right before the test, she got so worried, so upset, very emotional, not certain about her ability to know what to do on the road. It just kind of overwhelmed her. She went out to take the test and she came back and she failed the driving test. She was so upset about this whole situation. I'm a failure. I failed. I'll never be able to do it on my own. This whole thing, right? Well, so I said to her, I said, you know what? When you have these things happen in your life, it's going to make you a really good storyteller one day. But you can also use it to shift out of yourself thinking you're a failure and that you just need a little bit more practice. Got to develop your skills more, right? So what did we do? We spent the next 3 days, and I'm not kidding you, driving for hours. I was just driving everywhere. I didn't say a word and let her command the car, where she could build up her confidence. She could see that she can do it. She laughed about her failure. She was making jokes. We were laughing so hard about the whole thing. She's only 16 years old and she's learning to shift this horrible feeling of rejection that all my friends got their license and I didn't. I'll never be able to drive. I'm like, let's just get more practice and go test again. And that's what she did. And guess what? She passed. It inspired the show because it's really easy to get into that mindset, isn't it? That when something really big that you're working toward, and you can apply this to whatever it is in your own personal life, when you get the answer that it didn't work the way you wanted it to, you immediately could sink into the turtle shell. The head of the tortoise just goes in, and now you're just hiding. That's something I say around my house a lot. You're in the turtle. I'm in the turtle shell. And it's true, right? You get in and you start to constrict yourself and think you're never going to get out of it. And now I'm the worst person and the only person that failed the driving test in the world. And she soon realized that she knew tons of other people who failed their first test. It made her feel a lot better. So the failure taught her to what? Be the student. You're just not quite ready yet, so you're going to continue to practice. You're going to hone in on the skills that you're not comfortable with and go over and over and over until you get it. It's kind of like repetition over time. Some people, they don't need it as much. They just kind of naturally get things. But other people, they really have to practice until they get it. That's good to know about yourself if you're somebody who's like that. But the ego will come in and say, oh, but that's not how everybody else is, and you're stupid, and blah, blah, blah. You hear the whole thing. It's just how you operate. That's all. That's how I operate. I need more time. I need more practice until I can get it. So fine-tuning your own skill set in your life for whatever you're doing is important. I think today in this world, it's lacking because there's sort of this bar that everybody's trying to reach. And we're not really taught in like a general school setting, right? As a child and as a kid, unless you have parents who do this naturally, nobody's really taught any specific skills to get through whatever their difficulty is. Now, even if you're lucky enough to find a good therapist or something like that, that's helpful, really helpful. But for people that aren't, and there's many people in the world who see therapy as what? You're a failure. If you're not a perfect human, you're just a failure. And that's just silly talk. None of us are perfect. Therapy can be very beneficial. And when you don't need it anymore, you don't need it. And maybe some of you need it forever. It doesn't even matter. But it's helpful to understand how you operate, what you're doing, and how you can shift it into your advantage. My daughter shifted her failure and her belief that she could never do it into a real skill set. And now she's going to be a good driver. She's going to be a better driver now than she would have been on the first test. Let's say she passed that first test, but she went in apprehensive. She didn't feel confident. She didn't have it yet. So was it a gift in disguise? And that's what I'm getting at today. Is whatever's happening in your life, let's say somebody rejected you, someone you were head over heels in love with, infatuated with, just rejected you. And now you're devastated and you think you'll never find another person to share your life with. You won't be good enough for anyone else. And somehow our mind is convinced with over 7 or 8 billion people on the planet that that was the only person that could make me happy. Right? I mean, when you say it out loud, it sounds a little ridiculous, but that's what the mind does. It's wanting that rejection. When you see it that way, you're going to constrict into the turtle shell, right? And see it as a failure. And the ego is sabotaging. But what we're talking about right here is if I saw after I go through the emotion of it, because it's sad if somebody rejects you, right? There's a process. There's the initial tears. You're going to lay in bed for a while. Whatever your process is of feeling that hurt when somebody leaves you, can you shift out of it when you're ready and say, it could be the biggest gift of my life. If this person left me, maybe it's going to lead me to the real love of my life, or it's going to lead me to something completely different, into a life I would have never imagined had this person not let me go. So maybe when someone lets you go, it's a gift for you to live your best life in the future. Even though in the moment, you don't see it that way. It's hard to see past our own emotion. After you move through the emotional part, And emotions, again, they're just signs also. You're not your emotion. Let it all come out. And then when you're ready, you can shift perspective. You can rise up and make that choice. I'm going to go into the spiritual wisdom, relax, and realize I may not know where I'm headed next, but that rejection is a gift for me. And I just don't know where it's leading me yet. I could have stayed in all those years of darkness that I experienced, isolated away from the world, experiencing all kinds of strange energetic symptoms and really weird things were happening. And I could have stayed in that and decided to just isolate forever. But if I didn't make the decision to say, maybe this is a gift, maybe me being rejected from life itself, right? That's a big rejection. It wasn't just one thing. It was the whole world was rejecting me in my mind. If I didn't make that leap and say there must be another way for me to do this, there's got to be something for me to learn here, I wouldn't be sitting here today sharing all this information. So think about it. Look in your own life. And when you think about maybe you're going through a struggle right now and it seems awful and you're thinking of it as a possible failure, maybe it's just a signal and it's a gift that's going to change your future, even if you don't know where that is right now. Can you open yourself up to that potential, to that possibility that truly does exist? And then allow spirit to just guide you. Sit back. Don't be the driver of the car anymore. Just sit in the back seat and watch your life unfold for a while. So that's the learning part, right? That's the learning part. That's the pivot you can make in life. If you see things as teachers, they're just showing you a new way. And that new way may change your path entirely. Maybe rejection is a redirection in your life. You're just changing course. Ooh, I need to make a right turn instead of a left turn. So if the no's keep coming in your life, you can now say, maybe I need to shift direction. Maybe I need to look at this differently. Maybe I'm in the wrong career. Maybe I'm in the wrong relationship. Or maybe you're not in the wrong relationship. Maybe you just need to address what's going on in it, right? Get real with what's happening wherever you are. You're miserable in your job. Look at what's making it miserable. What is it that you don't like? And how can you shift it? Do you still like what you do, but you just don't like something about it? How can you move and pivot? How can you make that subtle shift to turn the corner or to make a U-turn, to change your path? So you're now using that no or that failure, and you're shifting out and saying, wait a second, there's something I'm missing here. I am not seeing the way that spirit is trying to get me to see it. We always think that our mind, the ego, knows exactly what we need in life and what we should be doing. Do you find yourself doing this? Well, I should be doing this. I should be here. I should have more money. I should have this, blah, blah, blah. It's oh my God, But spirit has other plans. Spirit will say, hello, you can kind of do whatever you do in life, but just look over here from this perspective as you do it. All of this drama, and you're the star of victimhood, it doesn't have to be like that. It is just trying to show you maybe you need to put on the left blinker, or maybe you need to investigate something a little bit harder. Use it as a guide. And the other exciting part of shifting out of this, I get even excited even thinking about it, is it's leading you to something totally new. And that's exciting. You're embracing the unknown now and you're accepting it instead of worrying about it or just staying comfortable with the security blanket. Failure or rejection is really opening up unseen opportunities. It's giving you that nudge, hello, we want you to see this a little differently. We want you to kind of spread your wings a little bit. Get outside the box, open the container and liberate yourself. You don't have to feel so constricted. You don't have to think you're not worth anything. You're actually not failing. You're just not seeing correctly. You're not seeing the huge opportunity that you have to see from a larger perspective. You can also get really open and excited about where this could be leading you. This could be great. Right? It doesn't have to suck. It could be awesome. This detour in your life that you might be going through is divinely rerouting you somewhere else. And as I said to my daughter this weekend, divine intervention is a real thing. And maybe you needed to fail that first test. Maybe it was a gift because you really weren't ready and you needed a little bit more practice. And that gave you everything to pass that second test easily. She felt great. She smiled. I knew it right when she went out. She was ready. Watching that in someone is amazing. It's so much fun to see somebody who doesn't believe in themselves to suddenly stop listening to that nonsense and just do it. Take action and do it. And she did it. Any of you that have kids out there, it's a great thing to start teaching your kids. If anything in life, I always say with all 4 of my children, if there's one thing that I want them to be able to do is to create their own set of skills to navigate whatever life throws in their face. I really don't care what they do. I really don't. It's just, do you have the skills to navigate what's going to come? So what you're really doing here is a spiritual mindset shift. You're shifting out of self-sabotage and woe is me, and you're using everything that could potentially take you into the darkness, which isn't bad, by the way. I think this is where the darkness, when you feel it, is a great wake-up call. And it teaches you how to move out of it. If you never feel the dark, you'll never know how to get out of it, especially if you're blindsided by it. You'll have no idea. So anybody who's going through a lot of darkness, it's not a bad thing. It's actually making you really strong. It's going to make you really good at maneuvering through these periods and then realizing you don't have to go that route. So the spiritual mindset is basically that you're staying with the decision maker. You're staying above the conflict. And you're realizing in this vast state of awareness or observer field that you have a choice to make. That's what I want to drive home. You have a decision. You always have a choice in how you see. You can choose lightness over heaviness. These are just data points, right? That's all they are. It's just like little information cues. It's not your destiny. It's not who you really are. It's just a signal. Like when you're driving on the road, you watch for the signals, right? You're watching for the signpost. The street signs are telling you where to go. It's no different, right? Life's going to do that. And the more you get familiar with how to do this is when it'll start clicking and you just do it all the time. And then the second you go into self-sabotage mode and think you're never going to do anything, you'll see it very clearly. You know immediately, and you can shift out of it. Make a choice. I don't have to do this today. You can, you can always do it, but you don't have to. So I want to end today's show by just reminding you that you don't have to be a prisoner of your own mind. You do not have to let your ego control you. You don't have to think that I have to do what my mind is telling me, or I have to believe what my mind has told me. You do not have to do any of that. You don't. And I'm not talking about what happens in the physical. I'm just speaking about your decision in the mind, how to see things, how to see whatever happens in form. So if you're struggling with feeling like an absolute failure or you've been rejected 100 times over, just recognize that you're listening to your ego mind that wants you to stay stuck. It wants you to believe that so that you don't have to break free. You don't have to learn, pivot, or evolve with spirit. You can just stay believing in that cycle. And you can have that see I told you so mentality, which is totally fine. You can, but recognize one day you'll be sick of that. You'll be so sick of that, and that you'll be ready to see from a new perspective. So do you want to be the prisoner, or would you rather stay in the decision-making part of your mind and see that you always have a choice to open up to the liberated side of spirit? That's it for today's show. Thanks so much for listening. If it resonated, please share, follow, and drop a review with your takeaways. It really means a lot. Visit my website at liveLikeEden.com to subscribe for weekly reminders and blogs, or sign up for a free 30-minute consult to explore one-on-one guidance sessions if you're really struggling in Awakening's darkness. Take my Awakening quiz to get a personal podcast playlist that meets you exactly where you're at. See you next week for another deep dive.